My name is Jordan Parhar. I'm an elementary school teacher from Cloverdale, British Columbia, which is in Canada, and this is my scoliosis story. When I was 14 years old, I was changing after gym class, and a boy said to me, "Jordan, what the heck is wrong with your back?" And he said it in a not so family friendly way, but I won't say it the exact words he said at the time. And so I was a little bit concerned, and I went and talked to my mom, and I said, "Hey mom, can you take a look at my back and see what's going on?" And my mom was quite shocked when she saw my back. It did look very messed up. And so I went to go see a doctor, and they told me that I had a form of idiopathic scoliosis. I had to get x-rays done, and I had no idea what that was. The doctors were very surprised that it hadn't been caught earlier, but the reason was because I was quite overweight as a young boy, and I was very self-conscious with taking my shirt off. And that was something that even as I got in my teen years and thinned out, I just wasn't very comfortable with. So that's why I was undiagnosed for so long. When I was diagnosed, I was referred to BC Children's Hospital, where I met Dr. Feroz Mianji, and he told me that he would be doing spinal fusion surgery on my back. And that was something that I was very scared about. I had no idea what was about to come. And as somebody who was very athletic, I was a little bit concerned that I wouldn't be able to play sports anymore. I was a big hockey and football player at the time. When I was 16, I eventually had the spinal fusion surgery, and it went very well. I was only in the hospital for 5 days. I had a very quick recovery. I had extended family and friends all come see me in the hospital. And that felt really good, knowing that I had so much support. Even though it was very scary at the time, once the surgery was over, it felt amazing knowing that I had so many people behind me. Afterwards, I was heading into my last year of high school, and I was able to have a pretty normal year. I didn't really have to change my regular routines. I wasn't able to play sports, but I was able to socialize, spend time with my family, my friends, and continuing to do some of the things that I love to do. I later went on to university, started that out, and it was going extremely well. But then I noticed that some things weren't the same as they were before. I had gotten clearance to play ice hockey again, and I noticed that whenever I was playing sports, I would feel very feverish afterwards. And that was something that didn't seem normal to me. I also noticed that I had a bit of a cyst that looked like it was forming on the incision where my initial surgery was. And so that was concerning to me as well. So I did what I always do whenever I have medical questions, or at least I did when I was a kid. And I went to my mom and I said, "Mom, can you take a look at this? What do you think?" And she said, "Well, we should probably go see Dr. Mianji and see what he thinks." And so we went to go see him. He said, "Well, Jordan, I don't really know what's going on here, but we'll maybe do a day surgery. We'll see what this is, and we'll figure out the next steps from there, but everything should be fine." So we went to the hospital again. I had my surgery. And when I woke up, I felt a lot different. I didn't really realize what was going on. And instead of having a surgery for only about an hour, it ended up being a 6-hour long surgery. And the Dr. Mianji let me know that I actually had to have the rods in my back, the 2 titanium rods from the spinal fusion surgery. I had to have those taken out of my back because there had been an infection that had been forming on my back, and that had been living on those titanium rods for 2 years. So that was a big shock to me. I didn't know what to expect. And so I had to have my back open for a few days. I had a vac dressing on my back. And then 2 days later, there was a follow-up procedure just to clean out my back and to sew my back up again. I was in hospital for about 12 days while they were trying to figure out what the infection was. And so I had IV antibiotics, and then I was later given a PICC line, which went into my arm. And then I also had an IV pump that I had to carry around for a few weeks. I was supposed to switch to oral antibiotics to clear the infection, but the antibiotics that I took put me into anaphylactic shock. So I had to go back to the hospital. I had to get the PICC line put back in my arm, and I had to carry around that IV pump for another 6 weeks. So it was a very long process for me. I had to go get blood work every week while that was taking place as well. And on the way to one of those blood work appointments, I got rear-ended and was in a pretty nasty car accident. Somehow I walked away unscathed, and my car was written off, unfortunately, but I made it through okay. And so for the next year, I slowly got back to my life. I went back to university. I started working again, and I kept having follow-up appointments with Dr. Meandri, and he told me the good news that I actually did not need to have any more surgeries after that because my spine had stabilized. And he said that I could go back to living my life. So I graduated university. I'm a teacher now. I've been able to do a lot of things that I wasn't sure I was going to maybe be able to do. But through the support of my family and my friends, I was able to get through to the other side. And I'm so grateful for the help and support, the doctors I had, Dr. Meandri, everybody who was behind me throughout that entire experience. It was definitely scary, but I'm glad I went through it because it gave me a new perspective on life. And I believe it's made me a better person. And that is my scoliosis story.
Hi, my name is Katya. I was diagnosed with scoliosis at age 14, and I had my surgery at age 20 back in 2018. My question for you, Jordan, is what helped you remain optimistic after learning about the infection and during your recovery?
Thank you for your question. For me, what helped me stay optimistic is I just try to take things one day at a time. And I believe in life, everything happens for a reason. I just kept trying to remind myself of that and just to think about how this was going to impact me and to make me better. And I tried to just take any little positive thing I could get out of it. There's a quote that says, life is about 10% of what happens to you, 90% of how you react to it. And that for me is how that really resonated with me. And I just wanted to try to keep a positive attitude and to not lose sight of that. And there were certainly days where it was hard, but I kept trying to come back to that. And I think having my family remain positive, that was huge as well, because if they were very negative, or if they were, and I know my parents were extreme, and my sister, they were very scared, they were very concerned, but they never showed that to me. They remained confident the entire time, and knowing I had them behind me, that's what kept me going.
Thank you so much for answering that. I think that quote is very meaningful for a lot of us that went through our scoliosis journey as well.
Mhm.
My second question is, how different do you think your experience would have been if you didn't have such a great support system?
I think it would have been completely different. And just as I mentioned, my family, they're everything to me, and that having them supporting me, my friends as well, that I needed them, because at the time, I'm sure you can all relate, when you first get diagnosed with scoliosis, you feel like this is something that nobody else has. I'm the only person this has ever happened to. Where do I go? Who do I turn to? And knowing that I had them behind me, that initially is really what kept me strong. Because at first I wasn't optimistic. When I first got diagnosed, I was very pessimistic about it. And I thought, my life is over. I'm not going to be able to do anything. And so um, I don't know what would have happened. But I honestly, it wouldn't have been the same experience, just because so many things continue to happen to me. So having them, that I think just kept me afloat, and I would not have been able to get through it without them. It wasn't a situation where I did this, I got through this. No, it was we got through this together. It was not, I was not alone during that because of them.
Yeah, I think we shouldn't underestimate the power of family. Thank you so much for answering my question.
Thank you for your questions. I really appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Emily. It's really great to meet you. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I'm also Canadian, so nice to see some
Awesome. That's
representation as well.
great. Woo.
Yeah, I'm from
Whereabouts in
Ontario
Canada are
though.
you, Emily?
I'm in
Whereabouts?
Ontario,
Oh,
so
Ontario. Okay.
yeah,
Where in
Toronto.
Ontario?
Toronto.
Toronto. Toronto.
Yeah,
Okay. GTA. That's awesome.
yes. Um, so I was diagnosed with scoliosis in the eighth grade, so back in 2016. And I wore a back brace for about 2 years. And then in 2018, I had a spinal fusion surgery where I was fused from T2 to L1. And then ever since then, I've been in recovery and it's been good so far. So my questions for you today are, while going through the multiple procedures and spending time in the hospital, what was your favorite way to stay motivated? And do you have any advice for anyone going through it right now?
That's a great question, Emily. Thank you. I think for me, it was, as I mentioned earlier, just taking things one day at a time. That was how I was able to stay motivated. And I've I've learned in life that if you have a negative approach to things, or at least for me, that never really leads to anything good. So I just tried to tell myself, look, you've got to stay positive. You've got to find something to hold on to. You got to hang on to hope. You've got to, because if you don't, it's just not going to be good for you. It's not going to be good for anybody. So that was my biggest motivator. And just thinking about getting through this and some of the things I wanted to do when I was finished, when I was back to normal again. That was really what kept me going. And yeah, it was hard, but I just tried to again remind myself one day at a time. Don't get too far ahead of yourself, and um, everything's going to be okay in the end. And fortunately for me, it was a long journey, but I did get there eventually.
Yeah, I agree. Also, when I was going through my journey as well, it was the same thing, just making sure that I was taking it one day at a time and looking at the overall outcome and what I was pushing towards. So it is really good to just, take it slow and take things as they come. And then my next question for you is, getting told that you have scoliosis can be confusing and disheartening, because there really isn't a lot, or there aren't very many people that know what the condition is. So after reading about your accomplishments to date, do you think, looking back at it, when you were in the middle of your journey, did you think you were going to be able to accomplish everything that you have?
Yeah, it's another good one. Thank you, Emily. When I first found out, as I mentioned earlier, I thought my life was over, and I was, being a teenager. When you find out, you're very emotional. You're going through puberty. There's a lot happening already, and then you have this thrown in. That was hard. I had never faced any sort of adversity at all in my life. My life was very smooth. I'm very fortunate. I come from a very loving family, and I hadn't experienced anything like that before. So when I got that news, I thought, yeah, this is, I'm not going to be able to have a career. I'm not going to, like, am I going to be able to walk again? I'm not going to be able to play sports. I'm not going to be able to um, find a career, anything like that. And so, yeah, it was something that I certainly questioned. I think getting through it, that first surgery, my spinal fusion, I think once I got through on the other side and things were going really well for me, I realized, okay, yeah, like I can I can live a normal life again. This is amazing. And so that second time where I had to go back into the hospital for 12 days and I had two more surgeries, when I was there, I had a bit of a taste of that recovery period, and knowing that things were going to be okay. And I think that really did help me a lot. I think that made a big difference in knowing that, okay, I can stay positive and I can still do great things in my life if I want to, and live my life to the fullest. And so, yeah, I'm so grateful to I my life certainly hasn't gone the exact way that I planned it would when I was 14 years old. But at the same time, there are so many things that I've been able to do and see in the world that I I'm so grateful for. And scoliosis and hasn't held me back from any of it. All my hopes, all my dreams, things that I've wanted to do, I've been able to do a lot of them, and I'm very grateful for that.
Well, that's really good to hear, and I totally agree. It can really seem very like overwhelming, especially at such a young age, because I felt the exact same way. And like you mentioned, coming out on the other side is just, you see what you're able to, get through on your own, and it really strengthens you as a person. So I'm really glad to hear that you're doing so well, and thank you so much for answering my questions.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Hey, I'm Courtney Roan. I was diagnosed in middle school and I eventually had spinal fusion surgery when I was a junior in high school from T1 to L2, so very similar to yours. I remember reading your story and I was like, wow, 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 wow. Like everything just kept going and I was so like amazed on how positive you stayed throughout the entire situation, because I'm sure like anybody in that circumstance would be having a lot of negative thoughts. So it's absolutely incredible that you stayed so positive. So I commend you for that. My
Thank you.
first question to you, and no problem. My first question to you is, do you feel as though this journey has made you stronger?
Thank you for your question. I don't know if it's necessarily made me stronger per se, but I think it's given me a better outlook on life. I've coming through on the other side and experiencing that both of my times in which I was in the hospital, it just made me realize that life it's very precious, and it's short and you don't know what's ever going to happen. So it's made me really appreciate every day that I've had and just made me feel grateful. And it's inspired me to try to find purpose in my life. So for me, and there was a point after all of my surgeries where I didn't feel that sense of purpose. And that was really hard for me. But later on, now that I'm a little bit older, I'm in my late 20s, I've been able to find that through teaching. I've been able to travel abroad. I taught for a month in a small Kenyan village a few summers ago, and that was a life-changing experience for me. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily made me stronger, but I would say it's helped me become a better person for sure.
I completely agree. We have one life. We're going to go through many ups and downs, so might as well make the best of it. Completely agree.
Absolutely.
My second question for you is, what would you tell someone newly diagnosed with scoliosis?
There's a couple of things I would say to somebody who's newly diagnosed with scoliosis. The first thing is you're not alone. I think for all of us who, when we first get diagnosed, that's the feeling, is you feel like, what is this? I'm all by myself. How am I going to get through this? You're not alone though. If you're watching this, you're somebody who's newly diagnosed. There are so many people all around the world who get diagnosed with this each and every year. And there's now, with technology, there's ways to connect in ways that we weren't able to before. And the other thing is we've all got loved ones, people that care about us, whether that's family, friends, teachers. There's people all over in your life that care about you and are there to support you. You've just got to let them know that you need their support. And sometimes it's hard to do, but you'd be surprised. There are a lot of people that I was able to confide in and reach out to that were so supportive of me throughout my entire journey, and I wouldn't have made it without them. The other thing I would say to somebody who's newly diagnosed is it's going to get better. And I know that's hard to hear. I know people said that to me when I was first diagnosed, and I said, "What do you don't know anything. You haven't gone through this. What are you talking about?" But it's the truth. It's going to get better. When you first get diagnosed, it's brutal. It's something that can be super devastating for people. But it does get better. And for me, that it took a long time to get there. There were some ups and downs during that time, but that was another thing I tried to tell myself in the hospital too, towards the end, was it's going to get better. It can't get worse than this. It's going to get better. And it took some time, but eventually that happened. So those are the two pieces of advice I would give. And yeah, if reaching out to any of us on this call or somebody or connecting with organizations like Setting Scoliosis Straight, I think take advantage of that, because we have this technology. Let's use it for good.
Yeah, I've been with Setting Scoliosis Straight for a few years now, and I can honestly say, like, we're a big supportive family. I was fortunate enough to find them after my surgery. I wish I had found them before my surgery, but even after, like, I've talked to so many different people and heard so many different stories, and each and every single one of us has been supportive of each other, supportive of the newly scoliosis family, and whether you find it in your own family, the support system, or if you have to reach out to someone in Setting Scoliosis Straight, definitely having that support system makes a huge difference. So it's lovely to hear your story.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for your questions and for your time. I truly, truly appreciate it.